Every game with NPCs needs a dialog box. Here's a clean, beginner-friendly one in Unity and C#. Lines one at a time, a typewriter reveal, advance on a key press, and branching player choices. Let's build it. Quick, honest heads up before we open the editor. This dialog code, plus 50 other copy-paste snippets for Unity and Godot, lives in my gamedev starter kit. $19, completely optional, and the link is below. That's the whole pitch. Now, let's build a dialogue system in Unity. Everything starts with the writing, and the golden rule is to keep it out of your code. Your dialogue is data, not logic. So we make one small serializable class, DialogueLine. It has a speaker string, and a text string marked with the text area attribute, so you get a nice multi-line box in the inspector. That's one line of dialogue. Then we hold a whole conversation in a scriptable object called dialogue. It has a create asset menu attribute, so you can right-click in the project window and create a dialogue asset. Inside, just an array of dialogue line. Each element is one line, a speaker, and the text they say. Why does data-driven beat hard coding? Because a writer can fill in these lines in the inspector without ever touching a script. You can make 10 different conversations as 10 assets, swap languages, or load them from a file. And when the box needs the next line, it just reads the next element of the array. No giant if-else tree, no code change to add a line. Keep the writing in data, keep the behavior in code, and the two never fight. Now the box itself, the Dialogue Manager. It's a mono-behavior, so it lives on a game object in your scene. At the top, 3 serialized references. A game object for the panel, the whole dialog box we show and hide. And 2 TMP text fields, one for the speaker's name, one for the body of the line. Use TMP text, the TextMeshPro type, not the old legacy text. It looks sharper and it's what Unity recommends now. Then a couple of private fields, the lines array we're currently showing, and an index that tracks which line we're on. And a public event, onDialogueEnd, that fires when the conversation finishes, so the rest of your game knows to hand control back. Here's the public entry point, StartDialogue. An NPC calls it and passes a dialogue asset. We copy its lines into our array, reset the index to 0, turn the panel on with setActiveTrue, and show the first line. One method kicks off the whole conversation. 3 small methods run the whole box. First, ShowLine. It reads the current dialogue line out of the array using the index. It drops the speaker into the name text, and then it starts the typewriter on the body text. One element of data becomes one line on screen. Next, advancing. How does the player move forward? In Update, every frame, we check 2 things. Is the panel even active? If not, we ignore input. Then, did the player press space, or click the left mouse button? If so, we call advance. Space or a click, whichever your player reaches for. Advance bumps the index by 1. If we've run past the end of the array, the conversation is over, we call EndDialogue. Otherwise, we show the next line. An EndDialogue is tiny. It turns the panel off with setActiveFalse, and raises that onDialogueEnd event. The box disappears, and your game takes back control. Data in, one box, an event out. Here's a small touch that makes the box feel far more polished. A typewriter reveal, where the text appears letter by letter. In Unity, that's a coroutine. Look at TypeLine. It returns an IEnumerator, which is what makes it a coroutine. First we clear the body text to an empty string. Then we loop over every character in the line. We add it to the text, and yield return a new wait for seconds. That's a tiny pause, controlled by a type speed field. The engine handles the timing between characters for you. But there's a catch. You must store the running coroutine, and stop the old one before starting a new one. So we keep a coroutine field called typing. In start typing, if typing isn't null, we stop coroutine on it first, then start coroutine the new one and save the handle. Skip that, and two lines type on top of each other, a classic garbled text bug. And one more polish. If the player presses advance while the text is still typing, don't skip to the next line, snap this line to full instead. So at the top of advance, if typing is still running, we stop it, set the body text straight to the full line, and return. First press fills the line, second press moves on. That's exactly how real dialog boxes feel. Now the fun part, branching. Some lines aren't just text, they're a question with options. So we add one more piece to our data, a choice class. Each choice has the text to show on a button, and a target, the line index to jump to if it's picked. Then DialogueLine gets a choice array. Look at the data. The guard asks your business. Choice A, I'm a merchant, targets line 2. Choice B, none of yours, targets line 4. 2 answers, 2 branches. For the wiring, we have an array of button references. When a line has choices, we loop over our buttons. If there's no choice for that slot, we hide the button. Otherwise, we show it, set its label, grabbing the TMP text in the button's children, and here's the key part. We call remove all listeners first, to clear any wiring from a previous line, then add listener with a lambda that calls choose with this choice's target. That remove all listeners matters, because these buttons are reused. Without it, old listeners pile up and a single click fires 3 jumps at once. And notice we copy the choice into a local variable inside the loop. The lambda then captures that local. It avoids the classic closure bug, where every button ends up pointing at the last choice. When a button is clicked, choose sets the index to that target and shows the new line. That's a full branch. Add more choices and targets, and you've got a dialogue tree. 3 gotchas that separate a demo from a shipped feature. First, use TMP text, not the legacy text component. TextMeshPro is sharper, scales better, and is the modern default. Wiring a legacy text into a TMP text field just won't compile. Second, store and stop your typewriter coroutine. If start typing just calls start coroutine every time without stopping the previous one, 2 lines reveal at once and the text turns to soup. Keep the handle, stop coroutine before you start the next. Third, clear your button listeners. Because the choice buttons are pooled and reused, always remove all listeners before you add listener. Otherwise every click stacks another jump on top of the last. And the one that ties it all together, keep the dialogue data out of the manager. The dialogue manager never knows what the guard says. It only knows how to show a speaker, some text, and a list of choices. Your writers edit the dialogue asset, you never touch the manager. That separation is what lets a dialogue system scale from 3 lines to 3,000. Let's put the whole thing back together. Your lines live in data, a Dialogue ScriptableObject holding an array of DialogueLine. An NPC calls StartDialogue and hands over that asset. ShowLine paints the current speaker and starts the typewriter coroutine. The player presses space or clicks, and advance walks to the next line, or snaps a still typing line to full first. When a line has choices, buttons appear and jump the index to a branch. And when the lines run out, EndDialogue hides the panel and raises on dialogue end. Data in, one box, an event out. And that's a complete, correct Unity dialogue system. Data-driven lines in a scriptable object, a tiny manager that shows and advances them, a typewriter coroutine done right, and branching choices wired through buttons. The full written tutorial, with every line of code, is linked below. The gamedev starter kit has this plus 50 more snippets, for $19, totally optional. Here's your next move. Those player choices only matter if the game remembers them. So watch the Unity save system build next, and start saving dialogue flags, which quests you've unlocked, who you've spoken to. Subscribe for more Unity builds, and I'll see you in the next one.